Anybody can set up a website, but trust me, it takes years of work and arguing to set up a radio station. And radio is special. As I said, if for no other reason, it's because from top to bottom, we control the quality and the loudness and everything else of our signal station. So, that's...
But I appreciate what you say about anybody can set up a website, and if somebody put, Woodstock104.com, it really wouldn't do them much good because they'd be pinned as phonies pretty quick because it's the search engines that notify people of what's happening and build up your goodwill. And that's why the hard work that I've done on my YouTube site, that is my argument. What they're doing is they are dividing me from my audience. They're keeping me from people who want to see and me from learning from them, because I learned from my audience. I learned about the cancer cure, the cannabis cancer cure, from my YouTube site. I wasn't making any money from it, but people who were leaving comments told me that there was something more compelling than radioactive low-level stones. It's the top of the hour, and you should...
Yeah, I should say what they don't want me to say, and that this is Woodstock 104, which is WIOF-LP. Woodstock 104.
Now, you wanted me to read more letters here, right?
Isn't there some...
Mr. Corman?
Yeah,
that's coming from Gary Chekhov?
Yeah,
This was an email. Now, you want me to say where it was sent from, or date or not?
These are the... it was obviously sent... it's just a email to our trademark attorney. So let's just see where it goes.
This is the cease and desist.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the official cease and desist order that we have. So go ahead and read it for the record.
Mr. Corman, your client, Randy Steele, left my general manager, Richard Fusco, a voicemail requesting that a copy of this letter be sent directly to you. We look forward to hearing from you. Gary Chekhov, President. Okay, now I'll read it.
Mm-hmm. Go
ahead. Dear Rich, good talking to you again. It has been a while. Ms. Steele is aware of your company's rights in and registration of the service mark Woodstock Radio. Your rights are being scrupulously respected and will continue to be diligently respected by the absolute avoidance of any and all usage of the terms Radio Woodstock or Woodstock Radio on and off the air as a source indicator of the services of Birds of a Feather Media. As explained, and it's interesting how he says it, because these things you can't see on radio. It says Radio Woodstock, a small r, and then Woodstock is a big W, or Woodstock, big W, and a small r. So he's using the name of the town as big. This is important when you're distinguishing entities in law. As explained, we respectfully disagree with your allegation that our client's usage of Woodstock 104 is an infringement of your rights in Woodstock Radio, and that's in all caps, so that means he's talking about a corporation. The words Woodstock is absolutely geographically descriptive of the client's broadcast location in Woodstock, New York, and the numerals 104 are an identification of the federally licensed frequency of her radio station. The expression Woodstock 104 simply designates her low-power station. In any event, and as explained in our conversation, we are committed to seeking an amicable resolution of your concerns. We believe the strict avoidance of the usage of Radio Woodstock in all caps, or Woodstock Radio in all caps, does this, and that no change in appellation is necessary. Nevertheless, as a sign of good faith, we will explore with our client the addition of NY, New York, to the current designation as a potential compromise and ask you to make comparable inquiry of your management as to whether that might be an acceptable resolution of your concerns. Please get back to us and we can pursue an amicable resolution. Peace, Mike. Well, this is why we don't use lawyers.
Well, yeah, I have to say that, and I told him this afternoon when I read that letter that we never agreed to in any way modify our form, which is licensed with the Secretary of State. We are Woodstock 104. There is no reason for us to add a New York on to that. Right. And there are many creative reasons that I could discuss off the air. I won't, because you don't discuss your creative issues. But all I'll say is that Woodstock 104 is great because it's short. Right. And syllables of about that amount, which are 5, are very common and have been researched to be the most remembered names. So Radio Woodstock, that's their trademark. That's 5 syllables. Woodstock 104 is also 5 syllables. So they are completely distinct from each other, but ultimately suited and not bulky or clumsy like Woodstock 104 New York or Woodstock New York 104. None of those are going to work, and we have those as our state licensed DBA.
Joe was out for a smoke, so did you read this letter? And I'd like to reread it.
Go ahead.
It's very important. Dear Rich, good talking to you again. It's been a while. Ms. Steele is aware of your company's rights in and registration of the service mark Woodstock Radio in all caps. Your rights are being scrupulously respected and will continue to be diligently respected by the absolute avoidance of any and all usage of the terms, quote, Radio Woodstock with small r and then a big W and the rest of them all small, or, quote, Woodstock with a cap on Woodstock and everything else small, Woodstock Radio, end quote, on and off the air as a source indicator of the services of Birds of a Feather Media. As explained, we respectfully disagree with your allegation that our client's usage of Woodstock 104 is an infringement of your rights in all caps, Woodstock Radio, meaning a corporation. The word Woodstock is absolutely geographically descriptive of the client's broadcast location in Woodstock, New York, and the numerals 104 are an identification, the federally licensed frequency of her radio station. The expression Woodstock 104 simply designates her low-power station. Now, I think that's your lawyer slipping a fast one in, too, because that isn't what it is. That doesn't designate low power. That's WIOFLP. That doesn't. Well, so it sounds like they're setting you up again.
I think what he was saying is that we serve Woodstock. We don't serve a lot more than Woodstock. Our mandate of our license is to serve Woodstock, as opposed to WDST, which goes all the way down to Harriman, is very listenable in Poughkeepsie, and even gets down to Newburgh. Our service is Woodstock. So the concept is, our service area is Woodstock, and if you're in Woodstock, if you're on 104, that's us. Okay. And that's all it is.
I hope you're right, and I hope I'm wrong. It's just that we've had so many dirty low blows with lawyers, and including lawyers I've paid. So, in any event, and as explained in our conversation, we are committed to seeking an amicable resolution of your concerns. We believe the strict avoidance of the usage of, in all caps, Radio Woodstock, or, in all caps, Woodstock Radio, does this, and that no change in appellation is necessary. Nevertheless, as a sign of good faith, we will explore with our client the addition of New York, NY, to the current designation as a potential compromise, and ask you to make a comparable inquiry of your management as to whether that might be an acceptable resolution of your concerns. Please get back to us, and we can pursue an amicable resolution. Peace, Mike.
The fact that he's saying we would consider adding New York to it. And it's like your lawyer is basically kowtowing to them, and one of the reasons why I don't get lawyers.
That's why Joe and I say it's a club and you're not in the club. Groucho Marx said that too. I wouldn't be part of a club that would have me as a member.
There seems to be a change in tone with this guy that I don't like.
Good for you, Felicia. I feel that too. Okay, here's from Robert Fesco. Mr. Corman, Radio Woodstock owner Gary Chekhov sent you an email regarding a trademark violation by your client, Randy Steele of Birds of a Feather Media, at her request. We were given an incorrect email address and do not know if you received our cease and desist regarding the use of the name Woodstock 104. We never heard back from you. Please see the attached documentation for our trademark and the letter Mr. Chekhov originally sent to Miss Steele, which she refused to accept. We would like to resolve this amicably. Please call me at your earliest convenience to discuss this matter. Thank you.
Let me jump in on this. Where they say, we gave you a cease and desist from using Woodstock 104. They have no authority to say cease and desist from using Woodstock 104. You are licensed by the FCC. You have the state of New York okayed you to use that. Who are they to say cease and desist from using it? This is clearly harassment and intimidation. And I can't tell you what to do. But if I was in your situation, I would sue their butts. Just that right there proves that they're trying to shut you down. They're trying to say you can't use your name.
You can't be who you are. I think you should do exactly what you said. Sit down and talk to them. But first take away this claim.
That's right.
Well, right. To me, the cease and desist... Am I up?
Yeah.
Okay. To me, the cease and desist says that unless they withdraw their claim and stop infringing on our right to use Woodstock 104, that there can be no amicable this or that or anything.
Right.
No, that's my position.
Yeah.
It's very plainly.
Any callers out there want to come to us with us to the meeting?
Well, you know what always
after
happens here
retreated?
is that when it's like 10 degrees outside or whatever it is, when it gets to be this time of night, when we get calls, they come in like that. They come in about 9, 10 o'clock. Then people are like hanging out and they're too tired. I know when I have to get up and do stuff to prepare for this radio station and then I want to go back to sleep, I can't do it. But we'll give out the number anyway. If there's anybody that's tuned in and wants to discuss their opinions on the issue between Radio Bully Stock and Woodstock 104, then you can give us a call at area code 845-679-9104. That's 679-9104. And don't worry, I answer the phone off the air first. And if you don't want to be on the air, then I'll just kind of relay what you say. So if not, then we'll continue. But I absolutely agree with what Joe is saying. The only problem is in suing them about this is that they could always fall back on the copyright issue that they have to defend their trademark. So if you don't defend your trademark, you lose it. But defending your trademark...
But you're not violating their trademark.
We got a call. Woodstock 104. Do you want to go on the air? You don't want to go on the air. Okay.
Somebody doesn't want to go on the air, but they're relaying the information to Randy.
Yeah.
We're waiting with bated breath.
Okay, so can I repeat what you just said? Oh, no, we would never do that. Okay. No, I understand it.
Is that her
Okay.
lawyer reprimanding her? Who is it? We're wondering.
Okay, well, no, I'm going to I'm going to actually relay what's going on here, and let me when you're off. Okay, what's your number?
Did we get somebody in trouble again, Joe?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just a
917-75.
It's not our lawyer?
0.
I hate being pushed around by my lawyers.
7.
And then they sell you out, and then they give you a big bill.
Well, we'll soon find out in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Or sooner.
We're taking bets.
Okay, well, thanks for calling. Bye-bye. That was a very interesting phone call, and the reason why I was taking my time to get it off the air and get the information off the air was another, well, I don't know if he was local or not, but he is another trademark attorney. And he called in and said, another one, and this has happened all the time, calls in and says that we are perfectly within our rights to call ourselves Woodstock 104. Now, he didn't want to go on the air because he didn't want his voice recognized, because he works all around town, and that's fine. I absolutely respect that. You're not a good broadcaster if you don't respect people's rights to privacy.
Right.
So nevertheless, he was giving me his phone number, and I will certainly follow through with it at another time. But what it basically comes down to is there is another unsolicited, apparently authoritative view on this, because he said that he is a trademark attorney, and he said that we have every right, that we're right in what we're saying. So there you go.
Yeah.
And that's why I was taking it off to you.
And what's wild about this, the letter that they sent to your lawyer, is they say cease and desist from using your name, Woodstock 104, and then at the bottom they finally say, we would like to resolve this amicably.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Gag me with a spoon.
Right. How is amicably when they're dictating to you that you have to go with their policy when their policy is not legal?
You know what? All that is simply very typical. You know, when I did that TV show that, Paula, you put on Manhattan Cable, I leaned into the camera and I said, I can't stand bad radio management.
Right.
Because I was relating a story of how I got dismissed, not even fired for cause, dismissed from a job I had at ABC. And what happened was I filed a number of complaints, one of which was the New York City Human Rights Commission, which found in my favor, but didn't find that it had the power to enforce its decision against a company like ABC. So I had also filed a complaint with the U.S. government's Bureau of Government Contract Compliance, and they ended up going over. The head of the New York City office of the Federal Bureau of Government Contract Compliance went over to ABC and went up to the 40th floor where Elton Rule and Leonard Goldenson had their corporate offices on top of the whole ABC hierarchy. And they were old Paramount executives. And they took the guy from the U.S. Labor Department and they started laughing in his face. And they said, so what? Take away all your government contracts. We don't have any government contracts. We're not military suppliers. We don't supply the military with anything other than some of our programming. And if the military doesn't want to run it on IFRTS, that doesn't matter to that. And the guy from the U.S. Labor Department got very government contract compliance, got very pissed off. And he said, you do have government licenses. I mean, government contracts. What do you think those licenses are? And they said, no, you wouldn't. We don't think they're licenses. He says, those licenses have a start date. They have an end date. They have all of the classification to be a federal contract. And if you don't have her reinstated by next week at this time, then I will begin proceedings with the FCC to take away all of your licenses and fine you as a unfit licensee. And I was reinstated in that job that next weekend.
I remember that show. I loved it. I loved it.
And the thing is, there is always the case of, that this could cascade. Once it is legally determined that they don't have a right to do this, everything they said in there about me making nasty phone calls to them, where 3 other occasions in all of these documents, they end up saying that I contacted them to give them my lawyer's contact information. That was not a nasty call. Why aren't they saying to anybody other than the Kingston Freeman or was it the Woodstock Times? Whatever. Why is it that they're not saying in these documents? And afterwards, Ms. Steele made all of these nasty phone calls disturbing our business. They can't do it because then that would be a fraudulent claim in a legal document. But they can tell the newspapers anything they want to. But that's the very basis of an action that you talked about before, because they are impugning my character by saying that I would make nasty phone calls. How dare they?
You are so right. At the end of the day, it's all about PR and being cast in a false light. There's nothing else but that. When I told M&N I cannot pick up a certified letter because if I do, my signature is going to get me involved with what Joe was talking about, the Crown copyright, it sounds like so crazy to regular people. But when you go deeply into these courts, these are the nasty moves that they pull. Therefore, there was, in essence, no good faith effort to work with me. I was pulled down without any fair hearing, without any understanding of why, and refusal to correspond with me by email, by telephone, and I'm banned from the building, so I can't go physically. That's how deep this is.
Well, this is the sort of predatory capitalism and capitalist model that we're working under here. I'm discovering this with various corporations in various fields of endeavor, that as opposed to the old days when the customer was always right, and that both constitutional, federal, and state laws and regulations are scrupulously obeyed, or else you could be taken to court for whatever violations you're doing. Now, the way the copyright laws and the trademark laws have degenerated, Radio Bully Stock has the cover of saying that it must protect its copyright. And unfortunately, we have to get them to take us to court, because we, aside from the character assassination, which would tend to go to a civil court.
No, not just that.
Go ahead.
Not just that. The fact that they're telling you can't use your name, that is actionable on your part. You could, in the letter that they gave to your lawyer, they said you got to stop using Woodstock 104, which is your legal name. So that's a threat, and they're threatening you with taking you to court, which is,
I wish they'd take me to court.
But Joe, when you say legal name, now we're getting back to the Crown copyright. Because remember, the American bar has access to use the copyright, but we don't. That's why I said with Greg Sutton and M&N, I said, look, Joe and I essentially won in court. Yet why were we evicted? Why did the courts have this memorandum of understanding with the police? It's because they do this incredibly low, sneaky stuff with copyright. And that's why a good faith effort means men and women facing men and women, and not dealing through these dead fictitious corporations in these arenas of theater.
Randy is licensed as Woodstock 104.
By the
For
state.
them to say you cannot use it is a threat. If you keep using what you're licensed to use, we're going to sue you.
Right.
That's a threat.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And at the same time, we can continue to use it, and they can or may not decide to, actually take action?
Because it all depends on whether in reality or not they think that they have a claim that would be substantiated in court. And I'm convinced that what's going on out there is that their trademark attorneys, I mean, here's another number from an unsolicited trademark attorney that called in about 10 minutes ago. We have, and not only we, there has been a nationwide discussion about this among community broadcasters and their various trademarks and various other attorneys. And 2-1, they're all outraged about how BS this is.
Right.
Okay? So my feeling is over there that this is a trademark obsession by one man, and that man's name is Gary Chetkoff. This is my belief, okay? I'm calling him out on this because my belief, not being an insider over there, not wanting to be an insider, but just based on all of this peripheral and anecdotal circumstances with every lawyer that's called us or that's been in contact with us or talked about this subject says the same thing that this gentleman who just called here has said. And my belief is that this is a trademark obsession on the part of Gary Chetkoff, and that even Richard Fusco, in doing these interviews with the paper or writing whatever he's writing, he is the general manager of WDST. He works under Gary Chetkoff. He has to do what Gary Chetkoff tells him to do. He does not place himself in legal jeopardy saying anything because it's ultimately going back to Gary Chetkoff. Gary Chetkoff is the guy who has to make the decision on whether or not his claim against us is legally demonstrable. And I firmly believe that he knows that his claim against us is not legally demonstrable, and he's only doing this to harass us, and that's why I will not talk with them until they drop the claim.
Right.
But there's something else that you might not be, that might be behind the scenes. Lawyers love to argue at court cases and argue and string it out, because the longer they string it out, they get paid. Mm-hmm. It's possible that Chetkoff's lawyer knows that they don't have a leg to stand on, but
if he could keep it going.
But if he can get Chetkoff to say, I'll hire you to fight them, he don't care if he wins or loses, because he's going to get paid no matter what. He could be giving Chetkoff bad information, saying, you're right, when he knows that it's because lawyers play that game.
Well, here's the ultimate legal game.
There's another thing which I'll say after Randy.
Okay. The ultimate legal game, and, this following part is completely objective, is that if they take us to court and we win, which we probably would, well, not only that, but the case is closed. We are forever Woodstock 104. They can't say anything about it. Likewise, if they take us to court and they win, then we have to find another name. So, like I said, put up or shut up. Because now I've got 8 attorneys telling me that we're right. That's 8-0. And by the way, I'll give out the number right now. I won't take this on the air. But if you're a trademark attorney and you think we're wrong, call us up right now. I want to see the phone ring. 679-9104. 679-9104. 679-9104. Only call if you are a trademark attorney and you happen to be hearing my voice and you think that we are wrong in our position and that we are violating WDST's copyright or trademark, give us a call right now, 679-9104. Just.
Did you hear that guy said that the internet's a scary place? I bet you anything that this broadcast is going all over the place, but you can't get it on the
Right,
outward. You can't
right.
get it from WoodstockTV.org.
No.
Which is outrageous.
But
It's just
listen-
outrageous that we've got these back doors on.
Listen, just listen for a minute. Okay, I've given out the number down. There's more than enough time for people to call 679-9104. Now, just listen. I don't hear anything.
I hear a clock ticking.
I hear a clock ticking. That's like hearing the grass grow. Or if it was during the summertime, you'd be hearing the wah-wah-wah-wahs. See, we have 1,000 little Dick Cheney clones all out here, and they're going wah-wah-wah all summer, but they don't do that in the winter. They fly south for the winter.
Okay.
No calls. No calls. You know what that means? It's unanimous. WDST is full of crap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that disturbs me about this, which is very underhanded and which might very well be the real purpose behind this in this town where there are so many people who are afraid of any conflict, is that they could just keep this thing where it's on the table, cease and desist, but they don't take any action against us. However, anytime we try to do business with somebody, like the town board or whoever, they go behind our backs and say, you shouldn't do business with them. We're having a dispute with them. They're using a bad name.
Yeah.
Right.
It's pending, right.
Well,
You know, it's like that's what they did already with the town board, and a town board wide down for it.
No. The town board has its own tower, okay? It is its own tower. Just like we have a tower, the town board is a tower. Except they, in this case, are a tower of jelly.
Do you know how much the name Radio Woodstock or Woodstock Radio will be worth in the future on the internet?
Well, the
Have you ever
internet
thought
isn't
about
radio. I'd say about a quarter by the time we're done with them. Now, the question is, a quarter of what?
No, I had a person who knew a lot about the internet, and I came back from India, and I was just filled with all kinds of enthusiasm to save the world and spiritualize things and elevate consciousness. And he said, Paula, and I love the word public access. He said, Paula, public access is so passé. And I think even the word passé is passé. He didn't use that word. But he said, it's gone, but it's more relevant than ever. Because it's not just people who have a message that go on the air to their community. It's like the call-ins that we had. I haven't heard such intelligent, fresh voices like that for a long, long time. And I know that those are the voices that the world loves, not these endless wars that are going on all over. And I get more information from a friend of mine in China than I can get on the internet here. And when I hear about the discussions going on about net neutrality, and we don't want to have a China model of censorship, I go, what censorship? I'm sent links from my friend in China that he can open up and I can't open up. Particularly when it comes to copyright and songs.
Isn't that
they're just
interesting?
they're rocking away with songs that they love.
But
that's what
you
they
have an
love.
Apple.
They
But
love us.
Let me jump in on this. That whole term net neutrality, from what I've learned, is a play on words. They want people to think that it's about net neutrality, a neutral net. But what it really is to neutralize the net, to put it under FCC control. And once it's under FCC control, FCC can come in and shut down anybody on the net they want.
Right.
So
We don't want
that's
FCC
a scam.
control.
Net neutrality. They just like they play games with words, like the Federal Reserve. They try to make you think the Federal Reserve is the federal government when it's not. It's a private corporation.
Yeah, and for those of you out there on the internet now, you should go to youtube.com/Paula Gloria, and you'll see the trailer that's coming up is a show that Randy and Joe and I did way back in March of 2013, before we put you, on the TV part. Your voice was just piping up from teching us. And
that's the way it always happens.
Yeah, and the name of it is called Why Politicians Won't Ever Let You Smoke Pot. And I can't believe it. Within one day, not even a day, I had 56 hits. It was like the good old days. I used to get 56 hits in about an hour. I felt I had about 50 agents around watching. And then there were comments below. But the comments were all coming from people who had very few subscribers, although some people might not be about putting up content and having subscribers, but there's some commenters that were very respected and they were followed. And these guys, one of them said right away they were going to put it on Google+. Well, I don't have the ability in my name that I've developed over years of hard work on YouTube to answer any of these comments unless I give up my mission mark. I don't even call it my trademark because I've never made a penny. Out of 5 million hits and tons of ads all over my site, I have never made 1 penny on Google Ads or whatever. So I am absolutely a pure public access, non-commercial producer. Just like I said to you, Randy, coming to this radio station reminds me of going to temples in India. It's sacred and it's holy. It's not commercial. It's about connecting with the community and giving messages of urgency, and particularly the message of fraud. One thing we didn't finish up that I wanted to ask Joe about when it came to ratings, and you were talking about Nielsen ratings and the different ways you were able to see it when you worked at the radio station. How susceptible to fraud must be these ratings? Because we learned from the Forensic Examiner how they were giving AAA ratings on Wall Street when they had the fiasco happen. Couldn't they so easily give high ratings to something that didn't have high ratings? Maybe they even cheat and they steal the public access ratings and funnel them somewhere else so they can sell some jive product that people don't really need or want, or it would harm them. Like send them to war.
Can I address the corruption in the rating? Because I have this first class. I've always been, all the way back from when I was a teenager and got my first radio job at ABC, I've always been very, very against tracking. That's one of the main reasons why I've never gotten into the internet or have a cell phone, is because just instinctively I would never respond. I used to get all of these invasive questionnaires from Triangle Research in Triangle, North Carolina. And if anybody doesn't know them, they're one of the feed points of data input for the CIA and now the National Security State. And as soon as I got my job at the ripe old age of 18 at the American Broadcasting Company, all of a sudden, within 3 months, we got a proposal with a $100 bill to be a Nielsen family. And my parents were all excited because everybody always said, who are these ratings? I don't know who these ratings are. I've never known a Nielsen family. But then all of a sudden, I get a job for ABC. And within 3 months, there's the solicitation for Nielsen rating service. And what they wanted to do was put a little box on the antenna input to our TV set so it would know every time I ever clicked a channel. Now, I would have been an excellent prospect for the ratings because I always used to watch Uncle Floyd on Channel 68 or other weird programming that I'd find over the air. I'd watch. I used to love Robin Bird. I used to watch Robin Bird on some of the low power UHF stations.
Who's Robin Bird?
Robin Bird is a public. I'm surprised you don't know her. She's a longtime public access producer in Manhattan. She has a beautiful body, and she does like workout sessions, and she had sometimes she would even get kind of R-rated on, and she produced various programs. She produced a G-rated exercise program for over the air, and then for like whatever the harder core cable is, she used to produce a sexy show. But at any rate, back to the story. So I told my parents, I said, if I come home and I find a box on the back of that TV, I'm going to go right into the garage, I'm going to grab an axe, and I'm going to take it off and smash the box. And my parents knew that I was likely to do that. So it was like they kind of tucked their, but that's $100. I said, I'll give you the $100. I'm making $100 a week now, Ma. But so that was in 1973. So that was okay money for that. It was spending.
You know, we got that money and did that thing.
I want to tell you, though. So I had this friend, a real close friend, and he was also into radio. And he got a job, but he was a brilliant engineer. He was one of my mentors in audio engineering, and he ended up being the chief technical executive of Pacific Telesis in California before he died of AIDS. But it was funny. He got a job at a place called the Announcer Training School that had also tried to hire me as what they called a rap instructor. And this was an organization that bought time on Channel 9 back in the days of the 4:30 movie or whatever. You know, the long movie with the Gone with the Wind sound. Da, na, 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 you know, if you ever watched New York TV and you saw those movies on Channel 9. And they used to advertise on there, and they used to get the dumbest people come. Oh, I saw you on Channel 9 that I could be a radio disc jockey. You think I could be a radio disc jockey? And that's the way it would sound. And that's why I never went to work there, because I would go, oh no, I don't want to teach these people how to speak. You know, I appreciate people that know how to speak. And, oh, you think I could be a radio disc jockey? Oh, I just came out of Bensonhurst. You know, and it's like, no, I didn't want to have anything to do with that. But the Announcer Training School also gave or prepared for technician FCC first class tests at the time. And since he was such a good engineer and he aced his FCC first class engineer test, they decided to hire him to be the FCC liaison for the Announcer Training School. Well, guess what happened? Within a month after he got hired at the Announcer Training School in Manhattan, his family got a letter from Nielsen saying, we want to install and have you keep a diary of what you watch on TV. So his family was so poor that they actually took the $100 bill and they signed up as a Nielsen family, except most of the rest of the family, except for my friend, was pretty illiterate and couldn't handle anything. And he used to, my friend used to get the log from Nielsen to keep. And he used to write the most abominable scrawl. At first, I was kind of upset that he would sell out his privacy to do this. But then when he got the log, he started filling in the most bizarre stuff that he could possibly misnaming shows, naming a show, and then with the other talent, so it would be all confusing. And he was there screwing with Nielsen's head. But the upshot of the story is, who becomes a Nielsen family? Well, apparently it has to do with something, by my empirical evidence, if you work in broadcasting.
Well, we had that happen at Berkeley, California, 921 Grizzly Peak. I can't remember, it was a $100 bill, but I don't think we had to do much except maybe they put something on the TV. Did you have that in New Jersey?
Well, they never gave it to me.
I thought they did that a lot.
They don't want to know what Joe's watching.
All right.
And Joe, that might be a good thing for you.
Yeah.
But at any rate, the ratings were always very suspect.
I thought it was random.
I used to watch Zachary a lot.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, my friend, one of the times he wrote was John Zachary did a Halloween video special for what at the time was called U68. And he wrote that down. He said, I watch Zachary all the time. I still watch Zachary's, that was one of the things he put in too, was Zachary's movie on Channel 47, when that hadn't been on 47 for like 10 years at that point.
But do you think they cheat, Randy, when they tell advertisers what the ratings are?
If you're asking me, I think it's a whole rigged system. I lived through the destruction and systematic takedown of what used to be called underground radio. Yeah, you know, these are the commercial FMs, usually FM side of an AM operation, back in the early 70s and into about 1980. And I saw...
Slow down. You're saying the FM station was the commercial operation of the AMs?
Well, this is at a time when things were changing. No, the AM would have, let's say, the top 40 or the commercial talk format. And the FM would be playing album rock for all the hippies. Okay? And those were called underground formatted stations. And systematically, the Nixon administration especially got his FCC to issue an edict saying that so-called freeform radio, where the disc jockey can select his own records and play them in the order he wants to, was actually against the public interest. And Nixon started sicking the FCC on all of these stations that were mostly anti-war and mostly were representing alternative lifestyles, as they used to call them back then, and literally shut down an entire segment of the radio industry by saying that you could use your license if you don't have a playlist. That actually went on in the early 70s.
What does that mean, a playlist?
That's where most commercial radio stations work with a playlist. Nowadays, it's usually automated on a computer, where it basically tells the disc jockey what song they have to play from song to song, when you have to break for a commercial break and all of this. And that goes on, and that's all done by computer now.
Does WDST do playlists? Can you guess?
I would say they have to, because...
But I thought you said you were playing different music, and then different music was coming on WS...
Oh, well, they take they take requests, and I think that's how that was happening. People would hear something here, and then they would go over and request it. There are other things I don't necessarily want to go into on the air, but it's obvious that we've had a big effect on them. Somebody, as I said, has told me that they were very astonished to hear on WDST people representing the anti-frack movement, that DST never used to have activists on the air. With them, it was all about the music. That was one of their slogans of the past.
So fracking, the anti-fracking, was never represented on Radio Woodstock?
Well, I don't listen to them. I'm too busy doing this, but I am told by people who do listen to them to hear what's going on. And in general, you know, they were, in the past, they were very boring. They were all about the music, and they didn't have much to say about anything, except for maybe a what's Carlin's brother, not George Carlin, but his brother they have on there, you know, doing some comedy or something, you know.
Well, then it just seems by default Woodstock 104 stopped the sale of Cooper Lake by default.
Radio Woodstock, or you mean Woodstock 104?
What I'm saying is Woodstock 104, to my knowledge, is the only station that was broadcasting vigorously the argument against selling Cooper Lake. That's huge.
I don't think they had none of the Cooper Lake activists on, as far as I know.
And I never saw anything substantial in any of the newspapers against the sale of Woodstock, of Cooper Lake. And You know, the reason that's so close to my heart is when I went to the Kingston hearings, the Public Utility Service Commission hearings about selling Central Hudson to Fortis of Canada.
That's right.
And they were all saying, oh, you know, not one person spoke on behalf of the sale. And today we have the sale that it went through, and people have double electricity bills. Like after being evicted from Gramercy Park in such an unlawful manner, when I came up here, I was so depressed that Cooper Lake was going to be sold. Because I thought, you know, what am I going to be living in such a horrible...
That was just a little bit before we really got started. That was all going on when we were still building the transmitter and the antenna. And I can't help but wonder, because we did a ton of radio, including live remotes, including having activists on here regarding the whole Cooper Lake situation. We broadcast live the town board meeting of the town of Ulster, where they basically said, screw you to everybody else in the area. We're going to take this water because we can. And I just can't help but wonder what effect the presence of this radio station, as I like to say, pumping out the propaganda, had to do in a difference with the Niagara Bottling fleeing the bad publicity and the bad press here, and the public organizing, and how much we had to do with that, and how much, if we had been around 6 months earlier, we might have had with Fortis. But the difference is the Public Service Commission is the one that had to handle Fortis, and they are the ones that ultimately sold out everybody in the Hudson Valley.
Well, if you started on the fraud of the sale of the water, what would stop you from reversing the deal with Fortis? Because everybody's up in arms on the double electricity bills, but nobody's put a legitimate solution on the table, and you go to the politicians and they just give lip service.
Well, unfortunately, that's because the Public Service Commission of the state of New York under Governor Andrew Cuomo is not like the Public Service Commission of the state of New York under Mario Cuomo, which was a tiger. Mario Cuomo put aggressive people in those state agencies to work for the people of the state, and Mario has fallen far short on that.
Well, there are big issues here.
But let me jump in on this one. I've said this before on the on this show and on our many of our other shows. The public officials do not have the right to sell what belongs to the people. Central Hudson started out with its money to put the wires in and to build the generators. That was all taxpayer money given to them by the state and by the federal government to set up Central Hudson, which that was the people's money. Then, as it went along, the politicians that sold off what they had no right to sell off. Just like Cooper Lake, we said Cooper Lake belongs to the people. Any politician that sells it does not have the authority to sell what they do not own, right? And I gave the example, if you had a butler and you went away for a week on vacation and you came back and you found out that the butler sold all your furniture. The butler was an employee and had no authority to sell your furniture. All these politicians are employees of we the people. As employees, they do not have the authority to sell off what belongs to the people. And unfortunately, me and Paula, we're fighting so many court cases. If I wasn't fighting so many court cases, I would take on Central Hudson. But we need somebody out there who's got the time and energy and knows some law to take on this Fortis sale, because it was fraudulently sold, and fraud vitiates any contracts. So it means the contract is null and void once fraud took place.
Joe, I agree with you except for one legal term, and that's ex post facto. This would all be after the fact, and it's like us with our name Woodstock 104. We've been using the...
No.
Fraud vitiates all contracts.
And fraud can be... fraud can be... Let's say there's a court case happening. If you go into a court case, you can go in saying fraud happened before you go in. You can say in the middle of the court case, fraud happened. Or even after the ruling by the judge, you can argue fraud. As long as you didn't... If you learned about the fraud after the fact, or became aware of the fraud after the fact, you can bring up fraud at any time. There is no statute of limitations on fraud.
And look at the suffering of the people right now. Mm-hmm. It's outrageous, the price of electricity.
Especially in this kind of weather where people either have to heat with electricity, which is a huge draw. Even on the grid, they complain about that. Or in this situation where many people have had their pipes burst because of the super cold weather, and they're having to resort to electric heat as a standby, like we are in this very room right now, and we're going to have to pay the rates on that too.
Right.
Along with the transmitter. Lucky us.
Everybody I have talked to, their electric bill has doubled since Fortis took it over. There's no reason why the electric bills should have doubled other than Fortis is gouging.
Right. And meanwhile, the cost of the fuel oil or natural gas has been cut in half, and yet the rates have doubled. What's wrong with this picture?
Right. Any calls about what's wrong with this picture?
No, I think we don't have enough time, really, because we only have about 5 minutes left.
We'll bring this up on Monday.
No, we won't. We need more people to stand up on this Fortis thing.
We've got too much on Monday, huh?
Yeah.
You want to introduce what's happening on Monday?
Yeah, go ahead while we've got just a few more minutes.
No, actually, we have a lady who was arrested on the Wall Street Occupy thing, and we're going to bring her on, and she's going to tell her story. And I don't want to really let the cat out of the bag, but you people might really want to tune in on Monday to hear this story. It's outrageous. But I would like to point out that all these Wall Street young people who were out there protesting and exercising their right to redress of grievances and free speech, they were set up. They were set up by the banks and by even when the cops came in and violated their rights, sprayed them, denied them the right to free speech, denied them the right to seek redress of grievances, freedom to assemble, and violated them, sprayed mace in peaceful protesters' faces, and beat them up, and then some lawyers came along and said, we're going to defend those people. Now, those lawyers were a setup. Those kids were set up. The lawyers didn't go in and say, we're going to fight this case for the right for free speech. We're going to fight this case for the right to assemble freely, for the right to redress grievances. The lawyers didn't do that. The lawyers were more than likely paid by the banks to go in there and say, well, kid, we'll plead you out to a lesser charge. And instead of standing up for these kids' rights, they got them all to plead guilty. Well, okay, instead of this charge, we'll drop it down to a fine where you're only paying $100, which was a further violation of these kids' rights. But we're going to bring this lady on, and she's going to tell you a lot of what happened on the Wall Street thing. She was one of the people who was organizing that, and they really did a number on her. But I'll wait till she tells you.
And that's